Red Feather presents From the Archives. Chapter 29, The Other Eye.
Goodness, what a mess. This is going to take so long to fix up again. Oh, don't start. It's my institute now, not yours, and I'm not about to start killing my employees just because they made a bit of a mess. Yes, even with what she did to the doors. They are replaceable, come off it. I bet you don't even remember when they got installed. That's what I thought.
Hey X, the workers are here.
Oh, good. Have they started yet?
Yeah, they're assessing the damage now, but they say they should just be able to tear up and redo the floor in the lobby. Though what happened to the hallways further in might be a little harder to salvage.
That's about what I expected. Well, it's hardly the end of the world.
Oh, and also, good news, Grian just called from the hospital to say Pearl's finally awake. I chatted with her for a minute on the phone. She seems fine, just a little tired.
Oh, that is wonderful news. Why don't you go visit them? I can handle things here, I promise. And we won't be reopening to the public until at the very least the main lobby isn't a disaster zone.
Oh, good luck with that. Green will be clawing at the walls to get back to work once Pearl's out of the hospital.
Yes, I don't think I'd be able to get rid of him even if I wanted to at this point.
Yeah, you have to drag him out of this place by his ankles if you want to get him anywhere. You're sure it's okay if I duck out? I don't mind staying.
I'm sure. Go see your friends. Pearl's awake. That's good. I've been worried that... Aha! There you are. Still hungry? After all that? I would have thought an incident like that would have kept you fed for days. But I suppose if Grian's off looking after Pearl, you don't get much of it at all, do you? All those statements from the visitors and staff aren't much use to you if there's nobody here to collect them. Well, how about this? I'll give you a story, and you leave them be until they're ready to come back to work. It's one you already know, I'm sure, but you haven't heard it from me, so hopefully it's still worth something. Statement of myself, Xisuma Void, regarding my family history. Statement recorded direct from subject, today, August 10th, 2022. Statement begins. I was named after an ancestor of mine, a great-great-granduncle or something like that. I don't remember how many generations back exactly. I like to call him Evil Xisuma to avoid confusion and also because I hate him. I don't know that much about this Evil Xisuma's early life, though I've pieced a few things together. I can tell you that his family never thought he'd amount to much. My family was already fairly wealthy at that time due to a distant ancestor's land trading, so his failures were hardly for a lack of resources, but more due to an unwillingness to train and work in any, let's say, traditional trade. He fell in with a rather unsavoury crowd and, for a time, was completely out of touch with his family. I don't know what exactly led him to discover what he did, but somewhere in that time period, he came to learn about a god, I suppose. Some power far larger than a human would ever hope to comprehend. And he wanted to make a deal with it. It was a creature of knowledge, and so he figured that as long as he fed it, it could give him everything he wanted. And it could. Though, not without a price, of course. He founded this institute as a part of that deal, as a way to feed his god of knowledge. And in exchange, he asked it for the knowledge of how to live forever. He wasn't really a man of grand ambitions. He was just petty, and wanted to outlive everyone who he felt had disrespected him. And it told him how he could. We can skip ahead here about 120 years. Leadership of the Institute was passed down, more or less, through my family. Evil Xisuma didn't have any children of his own, but his successor was one of his brother's children, and after his eventual death, it passed to another uncle of mine. I only ever intended to intern here for a year or so. I was offered a guaranteed position. I'd just graduated for computer science, but the job market wasn't very good at the time, so I figured, while I looked for a more permanent position, taking a temporary position at a non-profit research institute would look a lot better than a big gap on my CV. I didn't know my uncle well. He'd always kept fairly well away from family events, at least as far back as I could remember. According to my mother, he'd been a lot more gregarious when they were growing up. But when I first arrived at the institute, he seemed very interested to talk to me, though not in a very friendly way. He had a lot of questions about my life, my goals, my friends, all that. It was almost a little unnerving how much he wanted to know, but at the time I figured he was just a bit strange socially. The first 6 months or so working here were normal enough. I spent most of my time trying to modernise the computer system, since it was about 20 years out of date even then, though I quickly discovered that most technology from after the turn of the millennium stubbornly refused to function properly with some of our archival and library materials, no matter what I tried. Despite his initial excitement to get to know me, my uncle quickly revealed himself as a rather terrible boss. He was rude to workers, always missed board meetings, and was frankly just generally quite inept at management. It became quite obvious that the Institute operated in spite of him, rather than because of him. I'd barely been there 2 weeks before he was deputising me to attend donor meetings that he didn't want to go to in his place as a family representative. And then, I think it was exactly half a year into my employment, my uncle asked me to come to his office after the Institute had closed for the day. When I got there, he had 2 glasses of wine waiting on his desk, and he invited me to take a seat. He started by saying that he knew I was only planning on staying another 6 months, but would I ever consider a longer-term position at the Institute? I started to try and find the most polite way to turn him down, since, given how unpleasant he was, I had absolutely no interest in working for him any longer than I'd already agreed to. But the next thing he said gave me pause. He said he wanted me to be his successor. I was stunned when he said it. I thought it was some sort of joke. But he kept talking, and it started to make a bit more sense. Or at least I could see where the idea had come from. The position was handed down in my family, and he'd been impressed with my performance so far, or that's what he claimed at the time. I won't lie and say I didn't consider it. It would have been a guaranteed comfortable position for as long as I wanted it, and if he was going to be retiring, then my biggest grievance with working there would be gone. But supernatural studies just really weren't something I was interested in dedicating my life to. So I thanked him very nicely, but said I had other interests I wanted to pursue. He didn't seem bothered by my refusal. He practically shrugged it off. When I moved to leave, though, he insisted I not leave my drink. I told him I didn't really drink, but he said we needed to at least toast. I could tell he wasn't going to let it go. So we toasted to the future of the Institute. I took a small sip, just to satisfy him, and then excused myself and turned to go. I think I almost made it to the door before whatever he'd put in it kicked in. It was strong, whatever it was. I reached for the doorknob, but my vision was already swimming. I staggered, hit the carpet, and had a moment to see my uncle with the most delighted grin I'd ever seen on his face before everything greyed out. When I woke up, I couldn't move, and I couldn't see out of my right eye. That whole side of my face had that feeling when something is damaged so badly it's like it whites out with shock, where you know it hurts, but you can't really feel it. I could feel something wet dripping down my cheek. And my uncle was standing over me, angling for my other eye. He was holding some sort of metal tool. I didn't waste any time trying to figure out what it was. I tried to move, to get away, but feeling was still coming back to my limbs, and it was happening so slowly. When my uncle realised I was awake, he panicked, held me down with one hand, grabbed the glass of wine with the other, and tried to pour more of it into my mouth. I think he must have gotten the dosages wrong, or he hadn't counted on me drinking as little as I had. I had no clue what to do, so I did the first thing that came to mind, which was to hold my mouth shut, go limp while it wore off, and hope he'd think the drug had worked. He seemed to believe it. After a minute or two, he relaxed a little. And then he made a face, like he was bracing himself for something, and reached up and pulled one of his eyes out, and before I could even process that, he'd shoved it into my face, into the place where my right eye should have been and wasn't. I don't particularly feel the need to describe the sensation of having a foreign object stuck into your empty eye socket. It's not very pleasant. It did give me a chance, though. I had feeling in my legs again by that point, at least enough to move. He took his hand away from my face, and he was still smiling like it was the best day of his life. And I practically threw myself off his desk and bolted for the door. My limbs still felt half dead, and there was something else too, a sort of tugging in the back of my mind that didn't want me to go. But I was able to force myself out the door, get out of the office, and slam the door behind me. I had to hold it shut to keep him away from me. He was shouting after me and pounding on the wood. It's probably for the best that the building was empty at that point. I had no idea what to do. I just held the door, and eventually he started getting quieter, like he was losing strength. After what felt like ages, I heard the sound of something heavy falling, and then I stopped being able to hear him entirely. Once I felt confident he wasn't waiting for me to let my guard down, I just dropped down to the floor to sit. The adrenaline was wearing off, which meant the pain in my face was becoming impossible to ignore. And that was when I remembered about the eye. I reached up to feel my face, just to see if what was there matched up with what I thought I remembered. There was an eye there. I couldn't see out of it, and I knew it wasn't mine. It wasn't supposed to be there. My first impulse was to just claw it out, get rid of it, no matter what that meant for me, but I tried, and I couldn't. My hands just stopped. And that was when I heard him in my head for the first time. He wasn't actually my uncle, of course. Or, well, he was, just several more generations back than I'd been led to believe. His voice was different once he was inside my head. It sounded a lot more like mine. But he was very willing to explain to me just how thoroughly he'd ruined my life. He'd been choosing a member of my family every 40 years or so to recruit and replace, carve their eyes out and put his own in their place. Since I'd woken up in the middle, I'd messed it up. He didn't have full control like he'd wanted, nowhere near it. But he was still in my head, and I couldn't get him out. He told me he only had so much time after he started his little procedure to finish it, and he'd run out of time. He hadn't finished, and his body had died, and he wouldn't let me stab his eye out of my head, and he certainly wouldn't let me quit, because if the Institute stopped functioning as a feeding apparatus, as I learned, he'd draw down the ire of the dread power he'd dealt with. So we were both stuck. It probably goes without saying that neither of us were very happy about the situation. But after calling me a lot of ugly names I will not repeat, he eventually got around to telling me I better get rid of his body quick if I didn't want to be indicted for murder when somebody found it in the morning, and I was willing to concede that that was probably a good idea. His disposal methods were messy, but I can't deny that they worked. As it turned out, it was very easy to step into his shoes. He'd already been telling the donors and department heads that he was considering me as his successor in preparation for stealing my identity. Really, all I had to do was move my things into his office, once I had the bloodstains out of the rug. These days, I mostly ignore him. I've gotten quite good at it. I started wearing an eye patch so people wouldn't ask questions about the mismatch. The worst he can do most of the time is shout at me and give me headaches. Speaking of which, honestly, I'm glad Pearl melted the doors. Now that he's complaining about that, he's finally stopped gloating about successfully promoting a new archivist. I had wanted to keep the position vacant after Etho's disappearance, but, well, his only successful evil act of the decade, I suppose. At least Grian seems to enjoy the job. I hope that's good enough for you, because that's all you're getting today. I've still got work to do.
From the Archives is a fanfic series written by Johnny 16th Days and Zephaniah Grains, inspired by the Magnus Archives and by Hermitcraft and other Minecraft series. This chapter is performed by Ilex Diapason as Xisuma and Chrisrin as Impulse. Editing for this episode was done by Butterscotch Bread and Maxie. Music was composed by Noctude. Thanks for listening.